Aí galera que curte engenharia clínica, hoje eu estou fazendo esse vídeo para falar sobre um grupo, um time de colegas que formam The Oxygen Alliance, alguma coisa como aliança para o oxigênio. E o que acontece é o seguinte, o Covid jogou luz sobre o problema da escassez de oxigênio no mundo. O oxigênio não falta somente para o caso de Covid, mas existe uma mortalidade muito grande por pneumonias, vários tipos de pneumonia, onde o oxigênio é essencial. E nos países de baixa renda, nos países em desenvolvimento, como a gente dizia, eles têm uma dificuldade de ter acesso ao oxigênio. Então esse grupo trabalha para fortalecer esse conhecimento necessário para fazer uma boa gestão desses processos. E eles têm um Concentrator Talk, que é um bate-papo sobre concentradores, que acontece toda semana. Você pode ir no website, nós vamos deixar na descrição para você acessar, se inscrever e participar. As discussões são em inglês e a gente entrou em contato e pediu autorização para a gente postar um vídeo completo no nosso canal e a gente legendaria para eles, porque o Google ele traduz, mas não traduz adequadamente, então precisa de algumas correções e deu tudo certo, eles toparam e a gente fez isso. Estou fazendo essa introdução para convidar vocês a participarem desse Concentrator Talk. E aí o que você faz? Você clica ali na engrenagem, clica em legendas e escolhe legenda em português, que você vai poder acompanhar o bate-papo. E se você tem interesse em aprender a consertar, porque ali eles discutem a questão da manutenção em nível de componentes, troca de zeolita, calibração, enfim, tem todos os aspectos e tem profissionais capacitados para dar essas orientações. Você vai poder melhorar seu inglês, praticar o seu inglês e fazer contato com esse problema do oxigênio no mundo e como nós da área de engenharia clínica podemos ajudar nisso tudo. Então, antes de ir para a vinheta, deixa eu agradecer a galera aqui, o Gerald Douglas, Amaprey Rey, Timothy Mtonga e Kawinda Singh, Paulina Morrocho, são técnicos, colegas nossos que participam desse grupo e ajudam nas respostas e ajudam a fazer a gente pensar melhor sobre o problema. Então, agora sim, bora rodar a vinheta.
All right, great. Well, looks like we've got a fair number of people here. Wonderful. So hello, everybody. I'm Jerry Douglas from the Oxygen Alliance, here with my colleagues Amarpreet Rai and Timothy Mtonga. Welcome to the first Concentrator Talk. We plan to be here every week at this time to share our knowledge and tips about concentrators and concentrator repairs. If you have questions, you can always email us in advance, or you can type them into the chat and we'll try to get to them in the order that we receive them. We're going to be recording these sessions. Amarpreet, I hope you'll hit the record button, or if you didn't already. And we plan to make them available on the Oxygen Alliance website. So we have several technicians with us today. Let me introduce them. We have Kawinda Singh and Paulina Mohosho, Mwawi Lungu, and Mteto Sinjani. So I'd like to ask everybody to maybe please keep your video off just to conserve bandwidth and keep your microphone muted unless you actually have a question. Great, thank you so much. So I think we can get started. So the first question we'll ask Kawinda to take. And here's the first question. Timothy's going to also post it in the chat. So what does it mean if the oxygen concentrator ball keeps moving up and down in the flow meter? Could it be a problem with the four-way valve? So Kawinda, could you please help us with that one?
Yeah, if the ball is not static, it is moving up and down, the maximum time that is the fault of a four-way valve or a pneumatic valve, because maybe one side it is functioning properly and the other side it may be choked somewhere. So that can be the main cause, four-way valve or the pneumatic valve. So in case of air sap, we have different four solenoid valves for feed and waste, two for feed, two for waste, and one is the equalizer valve on the top. So they have different readings. In case of elite or intensity machine, the resistance of the four valves, feed and waste, that is 3.26 ohms. 3.26 ohms, and the resistance of the equalizer valve is 4.26. That is 1 or more, 1 kilo more than that. So we can check it with the help of a multimeter. If it is open, then it is faulty. If it is short, then also faulty. If the reading is correct, then it will function properly. So that is the way to check in the case of air sap. And other, we can clean it, then it maximum it works, the four-way valve. Okay.
Thank you so much. Any
I
questions?
think I think this question came from Peter, who is on the call. Did we answer your question clearly? Do you have any follow-up questions or comments?
Thank you. The answer is pretty much exactly where I thought it would be. Nice to have the resistance levels. I can check those now. I was a bit shocked because this was a brand new machine.
Was it an AirSep machine? Is there any more information we can give you?
No, that's great. Thank you very much.
So in case of AirSap machine, on the circuit board, there are 5 LEDs blinking. So we can check that which valve is faulty, that will not blink.
Okay,
That
it's
can be
not
seen
an,
from
it's not an AirSep machine. It's a brand
That is in the
new
AirSap. It is in the AirSap machine on the motherboard.
Yeah.
That is located on the motherboard. 5 LEDs are there for each valve.
Mm-hmm.
So that will change. Which LED is not blinking, that may be the fault.
Okay.
Peter, did we misunderstand you? You're saying it is or it is not an AirSep machine?
It's not an AirSep machine.
Could you tell us what brand it is?
It's a Sanray.
Oops, okay. All right. So is there any additional information we could give Peter with the knowledge that it's a Sunray? What model is it?
M50.
An M50. Okay.
That is.
Kowinda, back to you, I guess.
The LED is not on this Oxyflow or M50 model. I am telling about the AirSap model.
I think yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the faulty machine is an Oxyflow. Go in there. So can you give advice specific to that?
For that, there is no resistance level, but we have to check with the pressure gauge. Pressure gauge, we have to check the pressure of that, placing in between the compressor and the pneumatic valve. We have to place that pressure regulator in between that. So you have to check the pressure. The normal pressure range is from 12 to 22 psi. Correct?
Okay.
So if the value of the pressure is low than that, then means the compressor is faulty.
Right.
Or some way leakage is there, right? If the pressure is going higher than that, maybe more than 28 or 30, the pressure is reaching more than 28 psi, then maybe the fault of a seabed.
Okay.
Correct? And if the value is fluctuating, sometimes it is giving different, other time different, not static, not the same. That means the pneumatic valve is faulty.
Okay.
So that is in case of M50 Oxyflow 5 model.
Okay. Thank you.
And I think if you have more questions and you can't get things sorted out, get back in touch with us.
Certainly. Thank you.
Great. All right. I think we can move on to the next question. Maybe I can give this to Mteto. I want the team to talk about the user on how to maintain the unit's weekly maintenance and what to do in case the unit has an issue.
Okay, so the more like the weekly maintenance would be checking the oxygen purity of the concentrator using an oxygen analyzer at the beginning of each week. So if let's say your week starts on Monday, then it means you need to be checking, make sure that the values are within maybe who recommends 87.5%, and other concentrators even have the blue light for high oxygen light. So make sure that when you check with your analyzer, it's around 87.5 and above. And dust is one of the worst enemies of an oxygen concentrator. So you need to make sure that you clean it off, like in the filters. Even if you have a chance to blow off inside the concentrator, please do that, because it can literally increase the lifespan of the concentrator. And another thing to do is maybe like try and clean the humidifier bottle and refill with distilled water at least once a week. Not at least, but once a week. That's fine. And a concentrator has to be checked by a professional technician at least once a year. So make sure that when you study 2021 to 2022, make sure the concentrator has been checked by a professional technician, just to check for other faults that you can't see while you are using the concentrator. So for some issues, like small issues, they are written in the user manual. So if you have the user manual, try and look around. They can literally point out to you what to do in order to solve that problem. In case of big issues, like maybe the compressor making a huge noise and all other big issues, you need like a biomedical technician or somebody who is good at fixing oxygen concentrators to have a look at it. Not just a regular technician. Don't take somebody who fixes it and increases it just to have a look at the concentrator. You might miss the problem. Yeah, basically that's it.
Thanks very much, Mteto. Any questions from the listeners? All right, I think we can move on. I'd like to just remind everybody that if you'd like to get on our weekly email list, please send us an email and let us know, or you could just type your email into the chat right now and we'll pull it from there. So our third question, maybe I can pitch this back to either Paulina or Kawenda. I have a concentrator that I've been using for the past couple of years. All this time when adjusting the flow meter, it took a few turns to get the ball to the maximum flow, but now it takes a lot of turns to get to the maximum flow. And when I open the flow meter all the way, the ball does not reach the top. It's just above the 5 liter mark. What could be the problem?
Okay, so in regards to this question, one possible issue with this could be on the flow meter of the machine. So, to see whether the problem is with the flow meter, you will need to close the outlet of the machine where the oxygen is delivered. You will need to close that, and the ball needs to drop to 0. If it does not drop to 0, then it means that there might be a leak on your flow meter. Another possible problem, which is mostly the cause of this problem, it is the low pressure that is inside the machine. So what you would need to do is you will need to check if there's any blockage in the machine, on the tubings or on any part in the machine. Also check if there are any leaks in the machine. And another thing that you need to check is the pressure that is coming from the compressor. So check if the pressure is fine. So with the OxyFlow and with the OxyPure, the pressures would need to be between 10 psi and 30 psi. So you would need to check that. If the pressure is low, then that is the possible cause of the flow meter not going up.
Great. Thanks so much, Paulina. I see we have a hand there from Peter.
Yeah, just a quick note on that fault that you're describing. I've seen it a couple of times here where we've got a lot of lime in the water and they're not using distilled water, and it's blocked the oxygen humidifier bottle, and that'll cause a very similar looking and feeling fault where you're opening everything up, but you're still not getting any pressure coming through, and your ball's not going up full. So just a note, just to double check that you haven't got a lime buildup in your humidifier bottle.
Yes, also that will also need to be checked.
Great.
Those are the internals that will need to be checked, the humidifier, and also check the cannula connected.
All right.
That cause can also be due to the choked filter. If the filter is choked, then the flow meter will also not go up. If the cabinet filter or the HEPA filter is fully choked, then also the flow meter will not go up. That may be the one cause also. Or one more cause is the weak capacitor of the compressor. That can be the cause.
All right, wonderful. Thanks so much. If we have no questions on that, we'll take a new question from the chat. How can one fix a noisy compressor? I think we'll ask Maui to take this one. I know we're springing this one on you, Maui, but since you're the compressor expert, it seems like you should have a quick answer for this one.
Yeah, sorry, I'm having trouble with my unmute button, so
Okay.
it takes time to unmute. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So on the noisy compressor, I think there are a couple of things. The first one is not the compressor itself, but then there are situations where you get a blockage in one of the valves. So when that happens, you get a high pressure buildup within the compressor. And when you have a high pressure buildup, most of the compressors have a relief valve built onto them. So when the pressure reaches a certain level, the relief valve starts to pop. So you hear a popping sound from the compressor. So that could be one of the issues. The other issue would be that the service kits in the compressor are worn out. So when that happens, then you start getting a squeaking sound. And when you get the squeaking sound, then you will need to replace the service kits for the compressor.
Okay, thanks Maui for that. And so maybe we can also just mention that we put together a short training video on how to replace cups and sleeves, these service kits that Maui has just mentioned, and we will put that up on the Oxygen Alliance website most likely later today. Good. So I think moving on to the next question, maybe I think we're out of sequence here now. So I'm gonna pitch this one back to Mteto. I have a DeVilbiss 525 concentrator, black in color. It's the drive, DeVilbiss drive. When I measure the oxygen purity, it shows 21%, and there's some moisture buildup in the flow meter. What could the problem be?
Okay, so on that one, so I'd say if the concentrator was being used with a humidifier bottle, chances are high that the water might have gotten to the sieve beds. Hence, they are damaged, like the sieve beds are damaged. So this model of DeVilbiss, like the DeVilbiss 525 drive, has a design problem of not having a one-way valve before the patient outlet. And this allows back pressure. Created when the concentrator is turned off to suck the water from the humidifier bottle back into the product tank and the sieve beds. So the best way to troubleshoot this is to open the concentrator and check if the moisture is visible through pipes. If not, remove the product tank and try to point the hole downwards, or I would say upside down, and water might come out from the tank. And if this happens, it means that the zeolite inside, this is just a clue that the zeolite inside the beds might also be wet. So trying a new pair of sieve beds after draining the water in the product tank and adding a one-way valve before the patient outlet should prevent this from happening again.
Thanks, Mteto. I think it's worth pointing out that we've actually seen this happen on several different concentrators. So it's not uncommon, and it's just unfortunate that the manufacturer did not put this one-way valve in there to prevent this from happening.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we had another question in the chat. Maybe I'll ask Kawunda to answer this one. Is it right to leave water in the humidifier bottle when the concentrator is not in use?
Sir, it is recommended that we should change the water every day. We should not keep it inside because it can cause germs inside the bottle. No? So we have to put purified water every day. We are telling the patient to change the water every day.
Okay. And if if the concentrator has not been in use for some time, it makes sense to remove the bottle anyway, because you would not be using that same water when you give it back to a patient, I guess.
Yeah, correct.
Great. All right. So Kowinda, since you're the solenoid expert, there's another question in the chat here that maybe you could take. How many volts should be on a solenoid?
In the solenoid, how many types of valves?
Well, the question says how many volts should a solenoid valve have? I think the question means if we were to take a voltmeter and measure across the terminals when the solenoid is being energized, how many volts would we expect to see there?
In the air-saps machines, there are 5 valves. In InvaCare machines, we have 2 valves.
Sorry, I'm not saying valves, I'm saying volts, like voltage. What voltage would we measure with a voltmeter if we were trying to measure the voltage across the solenoid valve?
In case of air InvaCare, it is 24 volt. In case of air-sap, double this.
Yeah, I'm thinking
this machine, it is not having the solenoid valve. No?
So I think there are so as you're pointing out, the DeVilbiss machines more frequently are using the rotary valves as opposed to the solenoid valves, but the earlier models of the 515 and also some of the predecessors like the MC44 and the Devos were using solenoid valves. But I agree with you. It's not common to see the solenoid valve in the DeVilbiss. You were about to say on the AirSep, I think that the voltage is in the range of 200 volts. I think, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. Very good. All right. So the person who posted that question does that answer it for you, or you have a follow-up maybe? Okay, so no one responding there, I think. Okay, very good. Augustus, thank you so much. Okay, I think we'll move on to the next question. I don't know, Paulina, would you like to take this? So my 515 DeVilbiss concentrator starts to get hot after it's been running for a few minutes. I can feel it when I touch the cover of the concentrator, and then the purity starts to drop rapidly. Any ideas what the problem could be?
The problem could be the fan of the machine. So it is situated underneath the compressor. So the job of the fan is to cool down the compressor and help air circulation inside the concentrator. It extracts the hot air from the concentrator. So you would need to remove the cover from the concentrator and power on the concentrator to see if the fan is spinning. So if it is not spinning, then it means that the fan needs to be replaced. And if you will also need to check the speed of the fan. So if it is slow, then you would also need to replace it. And once you have done the replacement, then you would need to run the concentrator again and also check if the fan is running at a correct speed, and also check if it's running, and also check the correct speed. It's running at a correct speed.
Thanks, Paulina. And hopefully if that's resolved the problem, the purity should come back up again. I've just seen a hand from Wawi Lungu. Go ahead, please.
So one other thing that could be the problem is how you position your concentrator. So we always need to make sure that we are not blocking the airways underneath the concentrator. So If you block the air blood passages, you restrict the airflow within the concentrator, and that might also cause the heating up.
That's a very good point. I know that most concentrators have the air intake on the back, right? And if you position it against a wall or close to a curtain, it can block it easily. Blocking it from underneath seems like it would be a little bit harder to do, but I guess it's a possibility. Paulina, did you have a follow-up comment?
I would also say that the gross particle filter, that also would need to be checked, because if it is completely blocked, then it is also a problem. Then the compressor is not able to suck in enough air, then which makes it to overheat.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I think we can move on to the next question. Maybe Mteto, you can take this one. I have a Respironics Everflow concentrator that has been working perfectly. And after turning it off, the next time I tried turning it on, nothing happened. I checked the power from the socket and it was there. What could the problem be?
So one possible problem would be the fuse in the top plug. So like the fuse in the top plug of your power cable. But for this model of Respironics, the fuse on the control board easily gets bent. So if the top plug is fine, then you need to open the machine and check the fuse on the control board. The fuse has a round shape and is located on the corner closer to the pressure sensor. So they're normally red or black. Yeah, so if the power is coming on and the fan can be heard to be spinning, but the compressor is not running, then the compressor may need overhauling, or the start capacitor may need to be replaced. Yeah.
All right. So again, I'd like to encourage people to be posting in the chat if you have questions, or raise your hands if you'd like to ask a question about something we're discussing, or you have a comment. Thanks. I think we'll move on to the next question. Kulwinder, could we ask you to take this one? I have an AirSep New Life Intensity 10. The flow meter ball does not go up past 5 liters per minute when I try to move the ball to 10 liters. Any ideas what's going on? So this is a 10 liter concentrator that is not able to produce more than 5 liters per minute.
Okay, so in case of the flow meter is not going above 5, the first problem may be the choked filter. So we'll start from the filter. So firstly check the filter. If it is okay, then maybe the problem of humidifier bottle. That bottle is having a filter inside that may be choked. So after checking that, then we come to the flow meter. So if the flow meter is not going above, then maybe the problem of weak compressor or capacitor. Or one thing more, in the case of intensity machine, there is one knob placed before the compressor pressure. For 5 liter, that is having one position at 5 liter. If the patient is using the machine below 5, then we have to keep that knob at 5 LPM. If using above that, then there is another position. So we have to check that also. So that may be one of the causes.
Very good. Thank you so much. Any questions from the audience? If not, I think we can move on. Let's see here. I think Maui Lungu, I have a question for you. I have a concentrator that has no brand written on it, but I believe it was manufactured in China. The model number that's written on the concentrator is D02-5AM. The concentrator is working fine. I've checked the purity and it's producing 92% at 5 liters per minute. But the problem is the low oxygen light is on despite the high purity. What could be the problem here?
Okay, for this one, I think it depends on the type of sensor that you have inside. So it can, for some concentrators, for most of the concentrators, you normally have an ultrasonic sensor for oxygen sensing. So for those type of sensors, they normally have an inlet port where the air goes in, and then an outlet port where the air goes out. So the air gets sensed when it's within the sensor. So if you switch the inlets and the outlet ports, that gives out some issues. So you always need to make sure that the inlet port is where the air gets into the sensor, and you have the outlet port putting out the air after it has been sensed. If you notice that the orientation of the pipes is correct, then it could be that you have a defective sensor and you might want to replace the sensor.
Thanks, Maui. So this is most likely a problem during the time of assembly at the factory, we think, right? Where the tubes were just put on backwards.
Yeah.
Great. All right, I think we have a question from just posted in the chat recently. Maybe I'll ask Kawinda to answer this one. I have a Longfane unit. When it's set to 2 liters per minute, it's reading 95.6% nicely. But when I set it to 5 liters a minute, it reads less than 85%. What can I do?
The machine is working at fine at 2 liters per minute, and at 5 it is giving purity below 80.
Below 85. Correct? Yeah.
That may be due to faulty seabeds or the weak compressor, maybe.
Okay.
More chances of, I think, seabeds.
Okay. In terms of trying to differentiate between sieve beds versus compressor, you think you would change the sieve beds first?
We can check it with the help of that pressure gauge. So with the pressure gauge, it is clearly indicated which part is faulty. If the pressure is low at 5 LPM, then it is weak compressor. If the pressure is high, then it is seabed.
Very good. Very good. That makes total sense. All right here. So I think we can move on to the next question here. Again, encouraging people to post questions in the chat or raise a hand if you have questions. So maybe we'll go to Maui Lungu on this one. What does it mean when I turn on the DeVilbiss 525 concentrator and it starts running, then I hear the compressor stop and then start again a few seconds later, then the service alarm comes on and the concentrator shuts down?
Okay, so normally a concentrator will have a certain voltage rating. So it could be 115 volts or 220 volts, depending on the voltage that gets supplied by the electricity companies. So if you get lower voltages, that affects the running of your concentrator. For concentrators that are rated at 220 volts, normally you start getting such problems when you get down to something around 180, 190 volts. So just check the voltage and make sure it's within the range. For the 110 models, I think it's around 50 volts or 60. I can't really remember on that. But just make sure that the voltage you are getting is correct. Another possible issue could be the run capacitor. So the compressor inside the concentrator has a capacitor, and that run capacitor normally has a specific rating. So it could be 10 microfarads or 15 microfarads, depending on the size of the compressor. So if you get the wrong capacitor, then that will cause such problems. Or if for some reason your capacitor gets damaged, then you will also get those problems. So one thing would be to check the voltage, make sure you are getting the right supply, And then if the voltage is fine, then you might want to check the capacitor in the concentrator.
Thank you so much, Maui. Any questions from the audience? Tony, we're seeing a nice picture of your ceiling fan there. Do you think maybe you could turn your video off? All right. So I know that we've had several new people join as we've been going along here. So I know you might have missed the introduction. Before we go on to some of the final questions, just let me again greet everybody. I'm Jerry Douglas from the Oxygen Alliance with my colleagues Amarpreet Rai and Timothy Mtonga. So welcome to this first concentrator talk. We plan to be here every week at this time and talk about knowledge and tips about concentrators and concentrator repairs. So if you have questions, please either send them in advance by email and or you can type them in the chat and we'll get to them as soon as we can. Again, we're recording these sessions and we plan to make them available on the Oxygen Alliance website. So if you do happen to miss a week or two, you can find them there. And we're joined today by several of our technicians, Kowinda Singh, Paulina Mahosho, I'm so sorry, Wawi Lungu, and Mteto Sinjani. So we just ask people to please keep their microphones on mute and keep their video off unless they're asking a question. I'll go to, I think, what might be our final question here in our list so far. And maybe I'll pitch this to Paulina. I have an AirSep Elite concentrator as a donation from the United States. And after I turned it on, the lights showed for about 1 second and then everything went dead. What could be the problem?
So the problem could be with the power. So a large percentage of devices are from the US, the AirSep Elite. They're designed to operate at 110 volts. And if your grid is over that, like 220, 230 volts, it will damage the concentrator. So you would need to check the rating of the device first before you can run it. So if the rating is lower than what your power supply is supplying, then the device would not be good to use with your power supply. I would like Kulwinda to, because he's done a lot of AirSeps, to continue on with this question. I think he would be best at answering it.
Paulina, you are correct. The answer is right. That may be the problem of the voltage, because in US that is 110 volt, and in here Asia it is 220 volt, and some countries that is 220 volt. That may be the main reason of that damage, I think so. So firstly, we have to check the specifications before using the machine, what voltage it requires. If it is 110 volt, then we can use step down transformer for that. So many machines we have in India also, they are donated from US, and now they are using in India with the step down transformers. So that is the best way.
Mteto, please go ahead and add.
Okay, so like for the example of AirSep, most of the components that blow up when you have high voltage are like there are like ballistas inside on the circuit board and 2 resistors. So normally when you connect 110 volts AirSep concentrator to 220 or 230 volts, those are the most common components that will blow up. And they look fly when you look at them. Yeah, that's what I wanted to add up.
Thank you. And I think that is our last question. And I know we've just had a few more people join again. So if there are any other questions, I think we can, please feel free to raise your hand or ask your question on a concentrator, and we will ask that. Okay, we have a question here, I think just continuing talking about the difference in voltage of devices. If one changes a compressor from a 110 volt to a 220 volt, what will happen? Will the unit work? Tato, do you want to just add on to that, to the answer?
Yeah, sure, I can try. So I think like normally when they're designing boards for the concentrator itself, they literally put into consideration on like the power rating of the, let's say, the compressor. So you might find that some resistors do not match with the rating of that compressor.
Yeah, thank you. The short answer, Augustus, is no, it will not work. Muawi, go ahead, please add on.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to point out what you just said, that it will not work. You just need to be careful because normally these concentrators will look similar, like the exact same size. So you need to check the sticker placed on the compressor, that it's a 110 or a 220 volts. So it might fit into the device, but then you need to consider the voltage also. So the straight answer would be no, it wouldn't work.
Maybe just to add to that, to say that you really do have these two components. You have the compressor, and then you have the control board, and the control board usually has the power supply on it, which controls the voltage going to the valves, solenoid valves. So trying to convert a 115 volt concentrator to a 230 volt concentrator, it's not as simple as just changing the compressor. There are multiple other implications, and depending on the model, it might be, some models might be harder to do than others.
Thank you. Does anybody have any other questions? Okay. If we can ask everyone to please put their email addresses in the chat so that we can add you to the invite and just share kind of a summary with you of this call. I know there are a lot of people that did not put questions in advance, so it would be great if you can all just take a minute and share your email addresses with us. And then if we have no other questions, I think we'll just take the last few minutes here and talk about the Oxygen Alliance and what we've been trying to do here with that group. We'll pause maybe 30 seconds to see if there are, if there's anything further before I do that, or Jerry, if you have anything else to add.
No, that's, I think we'll wrap up there. That's great. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone who's sharing their emails. So the Oxygen Alliance, to give everyone a bit of a background, was started in November of 2021, and our goal was to improve access to oxygen in the global south, the low middle income countries. And we want to do that through supporting small local businesses and empowering them to sign up and execute maintenance contracts for oxygen concentrators with hospitals, ministries of health, and other establishments. So what we're really trying to do is bring together a group of companies or individuals, biomedical engineers, that are focused on the equipment graveyards that we see in a lot of these countries. And we're starting this process with oxygen concentrators. So as you become a member of the Alliance, and we have had a couple companies already ask to join, which is fantastic. And they will become members of this Alliance, and they will be hosted and promoted through the Alliance. But most importantly, members of the Alliance will have access to a couple different things that non-members would not have. One, we have a robust and comprehensive oxygen concentrator repair library. So this will be driven by our members. So if members find a concentrator, you know, we know there's a lot of different models and makes out there, that concentrator will get added to this library. And this library will be audio, visual, and written documents. So we'll have videos, we'll have pictures of the different components, of how to do certain repairs for that, how to break down those concentrators, how to put them back together, how to specifically refill their sieve beds or anything from a component perspective as well. This library is open and available to everyone. Timothy, if you want to just drop the link to the Oxygen Alliance website in the chat so everyone has that, that would be great. And basically, the advantage if you're a member is you can send us new equipment. You come across something in the field, you want more help in it, you want it to be fully broken down, we will take those requests from our members. We will have the first video up in the concentrator library later today, and that is a full breakdown of the DeVilbiss 525 compressor and then rebuild. So we'll talk about exactly how to replace the components that are in that, as well as how to take it fully apart and put it back together so that you are able to get more use out of a compressor that you already have. The next program that we have is the Concentrator Talk, which again, we thank you all for joining us here today as our first Concentrator Talk. So this is something that is open to everyone, and it's just about answering the questions. So you can send in questions in advance to our email address. You can ask those questions in the chat as you're doing during the call, or you can raise your hand and ask those questions. And we can get as specific as needed for that. So I know sometimes people have a problem concentrator where they have a part that they just can't replace, or something that they just can't do. We do have, of course, the video function here that you are more than welcome to bring that concentrator to this talk, show the part, show us what's going on, and we can help you diagnose and fix it in real time so that everything that you're working on is fixed by the end of these calls. So we really encourage you to ask those questions in advance so that we can be fully prepared to answer those. And then these calls will be recorded. We will annotate them so you can see the questions that were answered and what time those questions are answered. And then that will also be shared on the Oxygen Alliance website, so that if you don't remember what the answer was or you need to refer back to it, you will have that information always readily available. Some of the other services that we are providing for our members is parts and equipment. So sometimes it can be very hard to get both the parts that are needed for different concentrators, as well as maybe test equipment. So between SANRAI and Open02, we are able to give you access to high quality components and parts for the majority of concentrators, or we can help you through the components that are needed to repair those parts that you're working on at very affordable costs and at very high quality. So this is something that's a service that's really only available to Alliance members. And then we also have some other support where as the Alliance grows, we will be doing some advocacy work with some of the other charitable organizations that we are all aligned with, that basically works with governments and ministries to educate them on the importance of maintenance and service, and how that can be a really cost-effective way to keep access to oxygen higher in a country than just buying new equipment. So as we do that, and we've got this great list of companies across different countries that are fully audited and are fully trained and supported by the Alliance, we will be promoting those members to win those contracts or to sign those contracts, and to work with hospitals and government groups and all of that. So that's really the main activities of the Alliance up front today. We hope to grow and expand as time continues, of course, with more services and more support for what our Alliance members need. But we really encourage you to sign up to become a member of the Alliance. It's pretty easy. We don't ask too many questions. And once you join, we do hope that there's a lot that we are able to provide and support you. So everyone who's joined us today, we thank you very much. We will be back again next Thursday. And we are running out of our prepared questions. So please send in your questions in advance and come ready to learn. So thank you from me, Jerry, Timothy. I don't know if you guys want to add something here.
No, that's it. It's great to see we've had 25 people on the call today. I hope the numbers are going to grow from there, and we look forward to seeing people next week.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. Enjoy your
Bye-bye.
weeks and
Thanks.
weekends.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bom, pessoal, espero que vocês tenham gostado, que tenha sido interessante, né? Espero que vocês participem, né, desses grupos de discussão, principalmente aqueles que têm interesse em fazer manutenção em nível de componente, né? De mexer mesmo, hands-on, mão na massa. É muito importante porque não é uma tecnologia difícil, as tecnologias estão envolvidas, é possível de aprender e com esse grupo fica impossível de não aprender, ok? Então é isso aí. E no mais, aquele muito obrigado pelo seu tempo. Valeu!